Dust spiraled across the Wyoming plains as the late afternoon sun burned low, setting the horizon ablaze in copper and gold. Rancher Luke Hartley tightened the reins of his bay gelding, scanning the open land that stretched toward the distant Tetons. At 35, Luke was respected for his keen business sense and the relentless work ethic that had turned a modest spread into the largest cattle operation for 3 counties. But behind the reputation and the tidy books lay an ache for a family of his own, a companion to share the silence of the prairie nights. Luke often joked with neighbors that he needed a slim, tidy bride, someone who wouldn't mind early mornings and endless chores. It was half jest, half creed. He pictured a quiet, petite woman who'd fit easily into the spare rhythm of ranch life, leaving him to his long rides and ledger sheets. Word of his search traveled along dusty trails and through the post office faster than a telegraph. Letters from distant cousins and church acquaintances offered suggestions, each one extolling a niece or friend with virtues of modesty and a figure no bigger than a willow branch. Luke read them all with polite disinterest. He wasn't cruel, but his mind clung stubbornly to that image of a delicate bride. One autumn morning, his neighbor Jed rode over with a mischievous grin and an envelope clutched in his weathered hand. "Met a gal in Cheyenne," Jed said, handing it over. "Name's Clara Bennett. Writes a fine letter." Big laugh, bigger heart. "Thought of you." Luke accepted it, already imagining another frail schoolteacher type. He tucked the envelope in his pocket and returned to mending a broken fence rail, not knowing that this small gesture would upend every tidy notion he held about love. Clara Bennett's handwriting leapt off the page like sunlight on water. Her letter brimmed with humor and bold observations about life in a bustling railroad town. The clang of engines, the clatter of hooves, the spicy scent of street vendor chili that lingered long after nightfall. She confessed she'd never worked a ranch, but had helped her widowed mother run a busy boarding house, which meant long hours, heavy lifting, and endless diplomacy with strangers. Luke chuckled at her wit and felt a tug of curiosity. This wasn't the shy, whispering type he'd expected. He wrote back, and soon a rhythm of letters blossomed between them. Stories of cattle drives from him, tales of rowdy boarders and kitchen experiments from her. The correspondence stretched through winter, each envelope a bright spark in the long cold. By spring, Luke proposed that Clara visit. She agreed without hesitation, stepping off the stagecoach weeks later with a confident stride and a wide-brimmed hat shading auburn curls. Luke's first thought, if he was honest, was that Clara was not slim by any frontier standard. She was tall, strong-hipped, with shoulders that spoke of real work and a presence that seemed to push back the very wind. For a flicker of a moment, the old script in his head whispered that she wasn't what he'd ordered. But then she smiled, broad, unguarded, and warm as a June sunrise, and the whisper dissolved into nothing. The days that followed were a whirlwind of discovery. Clara rode horses with easy balance, swung a hammer when a stall door jammed, and laughed with a deep melodic sound that filled the wide ranch yard better than any songbird. She wasn't shy about offering opinions either. When Luke grumbled about a supplier's late delivery, she suggested a practical workaround that saved him a week's trouble. Each evening, they shared long walks beneath streaks of violet sky, talking about everything from favorite recipes to the loneliness of prairie winters. Luke found himself captivated by her insight and the way she met every challenge with energy and humor. One night, after a long day of branding calves, they lingered by the porch as stars flared across the velvet dark. Clara recounted a story of a boarder who once tried to cook a turkey with the feathers still on, and Luke laughed so hard he nearly dropped his coffee. Without thinking, he reached for her hand. It was warm and sure, calloused from years of real work. The connection sent a surprising rush through him, more powerful than any of the careful fantasies he'd harbored about a dainty bride. Spring blurred into early summer. Together, they mended fences, chased stray calves, and even joined a neighbor's barn dance where Clara's vibrant laugh turned heads and made fiddlers quicken their pace. Luke noticed how she drew people in, Ranch hands who normally kept to themselves sought her out for stories or advice. Her presence seemed to add color to every dusty corner of the Hartley spread. And Luke began to realize how small and pale his old dream had been compared to the living, breathing woman beside him. Still, old habits die hard. One evening, Luke awkwardly mentioned the expectations he'd once carried, a slim bride, quiet and dainty. He stumbled through the confession, fearing it would wound her. Clara listened, eyes steady, then let out a soft chuckle. "Lucky for you," she said. "I'm not here to fit a measurement. I'm here if we choose each other as we are." The simplicity of that statement struck Luke deeper than a thunderclap. For the first time he understood that love wasn't about finding someone who fit a checklist, but about standing beside someone whose spirit made yours larger. By midsummer, Luke knew he didn't want a single day without her. He proposed under the shade of the old cottonwood where they'd first shared coffee. Clara answered with an unhesitating yes, eyes bright and teasing. "Guess you'll have to build a bigger bed." The wedding was a small affair, attended by neighbors who already considered her family. They danced in the lantern glow until the moon rode high, laughter and music spilling across the quiet plains. Their wedding night became the stuff of playful legend around the ranch. The sturdy pine bed Luke had built years ago creaked ominously under their combined enthusiasm, finally surrendering with a dramatic crack that sent them into helpless laughter. Rather than embarrassment, the moment became a symbol of their union, strong, unpretentious, and full of joy. Luke rebuilt the bed the next day, this time with extra reinforcements and a grin that wouldn't quit. Life as husband and wife proved richer than either imagined. Clara introduced hearty new dishes to the ranch kitchen, turning simple meals into feasts that drew ranch hands from miles around. She organized community gatherings, helped neighboring families during hard seasons, and kept the ranch books with the efficiency of a seasoned accountant. Luke marveled at how seamlessly she blended warmth and strength, how her laughter remained the brightest sound on the range. When autumn storms battered the plains, they faced the hardships together, hauling hay in biting winds, nursing sick calves, and sharing quiet evenings by the crackling fire. Luke found that her presence steadied him in ways he'd never known he needed. Where once he'd sought a bride to fit his ranch, he now built a life shaped around their shared dreams, expanding the herd, opening a small schoolhouse for local children, and planning for the family they hoped to raise. Years passed, marked by the rhythm of seasons and the growing chorus of children's voices echoing across the yard. Clara's strength never waned. She rode beside Luke during roundups and led community drives to help struggling neighbors. Their partnership became a story others told, as proof that love on the frontier could be as vast and enduring as the prairie sky. Looking back, Luke often marveled at how narrow his early vision had been. He'd sought a slim bride to fit an image, but destiny had sent him a partner whose spirit could fill the horizon. Clara's laughter still rose above the lowing cattle at dusk, a sound that reminded him daily that love thrives, not in meeting expectations, but in shattering them. On quiet evenings, they sat together on the porch, watching the sun sink behind the Tetons in a blaze of crimson and gold. The ranch stretched wide and strong before them, a testament to years of shared labor and unwavering affection. Luke would take Clara's hand, feeling the same warmth and certainty as the first night beneath the stars. And he knew, with the deep contentment of a man who'd finally learned what matters, that the greatest fortune of his life was the unexpected, curvy, uncontainable woman who had broken his bed and filled his world with boundless love. As the years rolled by, their love only grew stronger, rooted like an old cottonwood against the prairie winds. Their children, now grown with families of their own, still returned each summer to help with the cattle drives and breathe in the wide Wyoming sky. Luke and Clara greeted every sunrise side by side, watching the first golden light spill across the same rolling hills where their story had begun. Luke often chuckled at the memory of once insisting on a slim Bride, grateful that fate had ignored his narrow vision and given him a partner whose spirit and love were far bigger than anything he had ever imagined. On quiet evenings, when the horizon blushed with fading sunlight and coyotes called from distant ridges, Luke and Clara would sit on the porch, hands entwined. They shared stories of early struggles and the laughter that had carried them through storms and long winters. Each wrinkle on their faces felt like a map of every ride, every dance, every moment of unexpected joy. Luke knew that the real treasure of his life was not the thriving ranch or the wealth of cattle, but the steadfast partnership that had transformed his world, proof that love's greatest beauty lies in the surprises we never plan when their grandchildren came to visit. The ranch echoed with the same lively laughter that had once drawn Luke to Clara on that first dusty day. Clara taught the little ones to bake hearty biscuits and ride ponies, while Luke told tales of roundups and prairie storms, always ending with the story of how he ordered a slim bride but got a whole horizon instead. The children never tired of it, giggling as they pictured their grandparents' first meeting. As twilight settled over the wide Wyoming sky, Luke would look at Clara, her eyes still bright, her spirit still as untamed as the plains, and feel the same awe he'd felt when she first stepped from the stagecoach, knowing that their love had become the truest legend of all. In the calm of those twilight evenings, Luke often marveled at how their life had unfolded, rich with laughter, shared work, and quiet understanding. The ranch had grown prosperous, but it was the moments with Clara that defined his happiness. Her steady hand during storms, her joyful spark at family gatherings, her unwavering belief in their dreams. He realized that the greatest adventure had never been the cattle drives or the long rides across open country, but the simple, enduring journey of loving and being loved by the woman who once stepped off a dusty stagecoach and changed every plan he thought he had as the seasons turned and the prairie grasses swayed beneath endless skies. Luke and Clara's story settled into legend among family and neighbors alike. Their porch became the gathering place for every celebration, where children and grandchildren listened wide-eyed to the tale of the rancher who thought he needed a slim bride and instead found a partner as boundless as the plains. On their quietest nights, they still shared a gentle laugh about the long-ago bed that couldn't hold their first burst of love, grateful for every unexpected twist that had carried them to a lifetime of joy.